got the DJI Mini SE here, and I'm going to tomorrow test it out at about 14,400 feet on the top of Mount Elbert. And this is, a performance review here. I'm out here in the field, and so I'm excited to get it out and see how it performs out there. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this drone first. Start off with some things just to be aware of. The first thing that's kind of annoying is just being aware of where you can fly the drone. That can be a little tricky. In national parks, you cannot fly drones. In wilderness areas, you cannot fly drones. Wilderness areas, they do not allow motorized vehicles because they want to preserve, the nature in those areas, and drones are considered motorized vehicles. And so that starts to slim down a lot of the areas I visit and I enjoy viewing. And then also other areas too, sometimes in cities, they have restrictions, especially near airports or jails. Those are just places to watch out for. Sometimes when you connect the remote and the drone, you'll get a message on your phone that says, warning, you can't fly here, do you accept full responsibilities, or something along that nature. They also have an app before you fly that I'll sometimes check to see if they have any suggestions, or they tell me I cannot fly in the area. So that's like the first thing to keep in mind. So the second thing I do not particularly like and find a little annoying about this drone is the DJI Fly app that's used. DJI puts out recommendations of which phones they have approved. My phone meets the minimum requirements by far for the app, but it's just not on that list of recommended or tested phones that they used. And so it's kind of annoying because sometimes there's a little bit of a struggle between the controller and my phone to connect, and so I won't get that display. And when you don't have the display on your phone, that really limits you. You can still fly the drone, but you can't see where you're shooting. You can't see altitude, distance, things like that. That's really needed. A trick that I found that helped and has made it fairly consistent and manageable has been exiting out of all the apps that are running in the background on my phone and then putting it in airplane mode. So that is one thing that I wish, DJI Mini would do a little better job of creating software for their app that's a little more compatible, that's easier to use. So talking about the drone itself, it has a nice camera with a gimbal on the front that maintains balance and allows you to rotate it up and down for different angles. The camera can do video in 2.7K at, I believe, 30 frames, or 1080p in 60 frames. And then shooting pictures, I believe it's 12 megapixels. And so that works really slick. Gives you some great content, great footage, different angles. That being said, as you go up to DJI Mini 2 and the Maverick and whatnot, the camera does improve, but I feel like this is a good base entry drone to try it out and see how it works. Other things about this, it compacts really well, fits in the palm of my hand. When you fold the wings in and then you fold it out, it's still relatively small at about 249 grams. I also bought a case for it because I do a lot of outdoor stuff, shooting footage in nature where I have to hike to it, and I don't want the drone getting jostled around too much. So the case just kind of looks like this, and I got an extra battery in there, as well as the controller, which is very nice, very sturdy, and have had no issues with that so far. With the drone too, the app, DJI Fly app, they use, or I should say they have some pre-settings in there that allows you to do 4 different drone movements, where the drone will either like fly around you or kind of circle up or go up at an angle. And that's just nice to have, especially when you're starting off, because it makes some of those footage that you shoot more smooth and less jerky. But as you go along, you can kind of mimic those movements. I think this test tomorrow will be its biggest challenge, but so far it's performed really well in some pretty windy conditions, and is really user friendly. Alright, so we're up here on top of Mount Elbert, about 14,400 feet, and we're going to see if the DJI Mini SE can fly up here. flying pretty stable right now. Looks like it's balancing pretty good. Right, looks like the DJI Mini SE flies pretty good up here at altitude. I just finished up with my hike up Mount Elbert at about 14,400 feet, where I flew the DJI Mini SE. Overall, very impressed with this drone. Really like it. There are a few things that I did notice at that altitude. One being the takeoff, it seemed to veer a little to the side a little bit. Usually it goes straight up and doesn't have an issue, but I'm guessing that's just because of, you know, higher altitude. Little thinner air, just like us, we need a little extra oomph to get up there too. Drones the same way. As far as flying, I seem to handle pretty well. Sometimes a little sluggish, didn't respond quite as well. And again, that could be the altitude, or it could also be a little bit more wind up there. So you got to fight that. But for the most part, I was able to stabilize pretty well, and, you know, flew fairly good given the conditions. So that was awesome. Another thing is, you know, the battery life. Usually it's around 30 minutes. It's not going to be like that up there. I would say 10 to 20 minutes in that ballpark. Again, you know, drones working a little harder, usually a little more wind up there, a little colder. It's probably 20 to 30 degrees, so that can all impact battery performance. But other than that, the drones seem to perform very well, and again, just super impressed with that flight.